to match her. Good evening, Mzansi, your prime time takeover has begun. Welcome to Trending SA, right here on SABC3, and tonight we're going to give you the best when it comes to the latest stories and hashtags, all of the stuff that's been trending on our timelines. My name is Alma Smith, and as usual, I am joined by Refilo, who's trying to go toe-to-toe with me on the brightest outfit that is existing on Earth in 2021.
I figure I got you beat. Sorry, girlfriend. I've done this in another episode of The Bright and the Beautiful.
Hashtag TA on 3, vote now. And Mable is here.
How are you guys?
Looking muted.
You guys look like you're going to hunt for butterflies. What's going on?
That's exactly what we are doing because it's 2021 and we are still within this pandemic. We need all the sparkles.
And we can't drink, so. Okay, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I feel immensely welcome.
Mable, you didn't even introduce us.
Mr. Lupi, Ngcayisa.
Please give him his due respect.
Let me give him.
Let me sit up straight for this one. See how the kids are going to honor the legend.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me give him his. So helping us unpack the trends today.
Yes.
Is none other than the seasoned radio broadcaster, communication specialist, and justice activist, Mynheer Lupi Ngcayisa. Welcome at TrendingSA.
I feel immensely welcome. Thank you very much.
Always beautiful to have.
All right, guys, just starting with a bit of sad news. The news just broke of the passing of the founder of the fashion label Locks and Culture, Mr. Wandin Zimande. And as TrendingSA, we send our condolences to his family and friends.
Absolutely, we do. So let's start with our first story for this evening. This ended up on the timeline after... do this rather. It's time for top trends. I'm so excited. You know when they say you're just overzealous? Like you just want to do things now. So this first story ended up on my timeline after the Kenyan Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife tweeted this over here. Naomi Campbell will be magical Kenya's international tourism ambassador, and that doesn't take away from our domestic market as he preempts pushback. It only strengthens. Hashtag magical Kenya. And of course, some tweets were confused and they were touched on their studios, questioning why homegrown East African talent was overlooked in favor of this international supermodel. They even went as far as asking if Lupita Nyong'o was unavailable to take on this role.
Thinking Right reacted, saying, here I was thinking the irreducible minimum qualification for this job was, drumroll, being Kenyan. Donald B. Kip Courier says, Naomi Campbell is more Kenyan than many Kenyans.
Yo.
Wow. Okay.
She should be made a Kenyan citizen and our ambassador to the world. Okay. Then Donald goes straight for Lupita, saying she's not Kenyan. Okay. Naomi has lived in Kenya longer than Lupita. Also, okay. So, when you look at Naomi's relationship with Africa, and particularly Kenya, which moment do you think swayed the Kenyan Tourism Ministry to make her their next ambassador, Mable?
I think it has to be the moment when she taught Kenyan TikToker superstar Elsa Majimbo how to do her makeup.
Spray your face. You can either spray your face or spray the wipe. It's up to you which one you want.
Oh, this feels like nothing. It feels like an ass.
Whoa! Whoa!
Whoa! How good is deep? You can't just go like that, boss.
Did we stop at the makeup or did we go to hair afterwards?
Okay, anyway, I think it was actually this. Because I know how men and their little brains. She taught the minister how to take the perfect selfie and the deal was sealed.
I think it might have been when she wore the colors of the Kenyan flag on the runway. Tell me this is not what did it.
The same colors also feature on the UAE's flag, on the Jordanian flag, on the Syrian flag.
Now you're spoiling our fun.
I love Syria. I love Syria.
I want this.
Apparently, it's very nice at this time of the year.
So, Uncle Lupi, what do you think did it for Naomi? How do they justify making her their ambassador for tourism?
Listening to all of you guys and seeing all of this for the first time, I think for me, three things come to mind. Number one, there's I think trips ought to resist the urge to opine and comment on things which at times they really have not a scintilla of what it's all about. Like no appreciation for the science whatsoever.
Sure.
Naomi Campbell, 30 years, if not, in the business, a global icon in fashion, global icon as a philanthropist, a big name that is known everywhere in the world. Now, were they expecting a Ngcayisa or a Sintletse from some nondescript village somewhere from Kenya who so happened to have featured in a telenovela to get the gig? This is for domestic, this is for international travel. It's definitely not for domestic. Number two, I think you also can't blame people that much given the politicians' disposition towards ingratiating themselves to celebrities, using the public purse, trying to bolster their images. So I think people are bound to obviously receive such news with the intense and immense hostility and skepticism, because is this about the country or is it about the politicians themselves? And the last one is just, I think, it could well be that the locals feel that the government is not supporting local artists or local icons, so that is also bound to stir up some kind of envy.
Maybe it's because she minted the phrase Amandala when she was here on African soil.
Forgot about that one.
Okay, on to matters much more concerning and serious. The hashtag Sasa started trending earlier today after a reporter tweeted a very disturbing video. Now here you can see a large number of people who spent the night queuing outside the Gugulethu SASSA offices in Cape Town. It's believed their disability grants are due to expire sometime this month. About 210,000 applicants countrywide have to redo paperwork in this fashion across the country.
Sure. So in a tweet, the DA Shadow Minister of Social Development in the Western Cape, Shana Fernandez, shared a video of the scenes outside one of Cape Town's SASSA offices, and she appealed for calm as they try to find a solution. And tweets also voiced their concerns. Lucy Tan tweeted the following: government is so bad at coming up with very simple strategies to make the lives of grant beneficiaries as painless as possible. Can't even grasp what it takes for these people to get to points of receiving these benefits. Absolutely no will whatsoever. I guess the question is, the president talked about funerals, etc., becoming super spreader, potentially being super spreader events. Are SASSA social grant lines, super spreader event loading?
SASSA, social grant lines, home affairs, transport department, basically every government department is a super spreader event. That's what it is.
And it also speaks to our inability to embrace modern technology.
Yes.
There's absolutely no reason as to why people should still be out there queuing up. And government can perhaps defend themselves in saying that they've tried to introduce technology and people are not embracing it. So there's a conversation that ought to take place between the citizenry and the state. Bottom line being bottom line, we're not going to see an end of this if we are still apprehensive towards modern technology.
Innovation and nimble thinking. Nimble thinking.
But people were tweeting about this, saying, how can the private sector stay open during COVID, but government, like Home Affairs, are closing their doors? The Health Ministry created that USSD menu on WhatsApp during lockdown 5, where you could get information. You cannot tell me that government hasn't made these kinds of innovations happen.
And that's super basic technology, right? We've got options. But after the break, we continue serving you the latest trends with Lupi, Ngcayisa, and later on we'll be talking about the COVID-19 vaccine rollout with Professor of Vaccinology, Professor Shabir Madhi. Do stay tuned. You don't want to miss it.
Welcome back to TrendingSA. We are still here with the incredible Lupi, Ngcayisa, and then the other ladies. What? Oh.
We just stay being disrespected.
All right, so something very special happened today.
Yeah.
The rich kids went back to school. So it's the grade ones are starting today. I'm saying rich kids because it's the ones with the preparatory on their uniform.
What does preparatory mean?
It's primary school for rich people. So basically, they all went back to school, and people were posting all these beautiful pictures. And I just want to ask you guys quickly, What advice would you give a grade 1 that's going to school for the first time today?
The grade 1 version of me?
Yeah.
Okay, the grade 1 version of me shouldn't get too attached to the school because it's only the first of 6.
Oh, Leafy. I would tell 6-year-old me that you can flunk a grade or 2 and just stay in the system a little while longer because adulting is a lot. I mean, I'm out here dealing with Elma and Mablade every night.
Lupi?
Stay there for as long as you possibly can, because it gets nastier and it gets it becomes a chore. Just stay there, be a nuisance. That's just basically what life is all about. Actually, just being a nuisance and just being that nuisance that knows that at any given time there's always someone out there to pick up whatever nonsense that you've left behind.
Wow.
I would tell them to actually learn how to use this, because this will save you from a lot and it will get you a job right here. So we asked you at home what advice would you give, and then with that Bridget one said, don't start. Genile, it's a trap. And then Usitakele from Swaziland, Landa Bezita Pagati, said that listen to your teachers, do your homework, ask if I didn't understand something in class, and sit with front desk. I was that kid.
That's perfect advice.
Yeah.
So, moving on, this morning, hashtag DJ Fresh was trending at #1 after a Twitter user put up a post saying at DJ Fresh SA, at euphonic, will you ever acknowledge drunking me? Maybe she means drugging, and further raping me. I was completed, drugged. I don't know whether you both raped me or one of you did. And you later laughed about it the next morning, saying, we, as in me and 3 other girls, were so drunk we kept blacking out. But nasidlwengula. So this tweet was part of a thread in which this user detailed an alleged rape that occurred, she says, at the hands of these 2 household name DJs. Many people were quick to react to the allegations. It was a mixed bag of opinions. Some called for justice to be served, others sent messages of support, and others just questioned the alleged victim's intentions for posting the thread instead of opening a case.
At Lebo Umashile responded to this saying, I believe you, Sisi. These 2 have been named in far too many stories of abuse. It's consistent. I'm so sorry that this is what you went through. No one deserves it. Thank you for validating others who may be too scared to come forward right now. Lucy Tan 3 again, this time saying, I honestly think Fresh needs to address this without feeling like he's being targeted. He needs to address it correctly. He's a bigger figure in the industry and carries so much responsibility. This is too direct and too personal. Allegations of rape, abuse and other sexual violations are unfortunately something that we see almost on a daily basis. And in South Africa, at this stage, it just feels like, where is the justice system?
That's exactly it, right? So we can talk about individuals. I think way too many of us know too many individuals whose name comes up in these types of conversations. And I have just this phrase: Family Violence, Child Protection, Sexual Offences Unit. If we as a country are going to hear about the phrase or hear the phrase GBV at every family meeting, can we put our money where our mouths are and allocate budget, warm, intelligent bodies to solving the scourge of gender-based violence and sexual violence and family violence in this country by allocating a dedicated unit? Because guess what? The Harvey Weinsteins of this world weren't taken down by women who, every time something happened to them, went to the police and, lodged a case. If you see that there is a name that consistently comes up, for Pete's sake, somebody be proactive and do something. Are we not in a progressive democracy?
I think the biggest culprits here, Rev, to your point, it definitely is the judiciary and the men in this country, our fellow brothers, our uncles, our fathers, our friends. And for as long as the judiciary continues being lax, and for as long as we get more talks, it pains me each time you get to hear the president addressing the nation, and he alludes to the fact that, GBV is another pandemic. But structurally, nothing has changed. To your point, once again, you go to police stations, victims continue being victimized because there is no dedicated counter that or office that deals with these offenses. And South Africa is counted amongst one of the world's rape culture is quite big in the country. So it's something that should be taken lightly. And we need to act, and we need to act immediately. And I think another point that I wish to add, looking at the mixed bag reactions that this specific tweet received, where people are saying, why are you only reporting now? It's not your place to be asking such foolish questions. That's a very foolish question that should not be asked. And in fact, once the judiciary decides to act, it should actually act against those as well.
Interesting.
And it's become such a dangerous place on Twitter. It's not safe for women to actually report these things because you get victimized all over again. Like I saw the tweets that came after the thread, and I'm just like, even Twitter is failing to actually bring the justice that it brought for people, to people like Harvey Weinstein and all of them. So really, our Justice Department needs to do something.
So, like, to that point, as a show, as TrendingSA, we are going to talk about this matter further because we're trying to have a more progressive conversation, right?
Absolutely.
So we are going to reach out to the MPA and the SAPs next week, and hopefully they can come, they'll accept our conversation and have a conversation with us here in the fourth seat, shedding some light on the real interventions and intentions on how they're going to systemically root out and solve GBV-related matters in this country. We'll see what happens, but you want to stay watching. Uncle Lupi, just so good to hang out with you. Thanks for your time today.
It was great and brief, and thank you so much for resuscitating the fossil and bringing it. With my
we love you.
Rheumatoid.
You'll be back.
But thank you. It's been wonderful. Thank
Sit down. You'll be back. We're keeping you. One moment. We've got to take a picture. After the break, we're going on a quick break. First of all, when we come back, we'll be talking to Professor Shabir Madhi as he reacts to the country's COVID-19 vaccine rollout strategy. See you in a bit. Welcome back. You are still watching TrendingSA right here on SABC3. Now, on the 7th of Jan, 2021, the Minister of Health, Dr. Ngcayisa, essentially told us the government's plan to roll out COVID-19 vaccines. And in his briefing before Parliament, he stated that his ministry is planning to vaccinate 40 million South Africans in a three-phased approach by the end of the year. And that'll apparently cater to frontline and essential workers, then people over 60 years old with comorbidities, and then it'll be open to the public and private sectors.
Now, obviously, this got our attention. And we need to talk about this rollout strategy, about the feasibility of achieving that 67%, and where are we getting, the next batches of doses of vaccines from. Leading professor of vaccinology at the University of Wits, Professor Shabir Madhi, now joins us. Welcome back to the show, Prof.
Thank you for having me again.
Thanks for your time this evening, Prof. Now, to the Minister's vaccine rollout plan, this promise of 67% of the population being vaccinated by the end of the year, is it feasible, looking at the fact that we've only secured 20 million doses apparently, and we haven't even started the vaccine rollout like other countries? Is it feasible?
The short answer is no. I think these are aspirational goals. It's good to have aspirational goals, but if you really want to reach a target, you need to set yourself realistic goals. 67% of the South African population, which is 40 million people, in fact, would require close to 100% of all adults to be vaccinated. And the reason for that is the vaccine is actually not authorized for use in children under the age of 16, which makes up about 30% of South Africans to start off with. Compounding that, the latest Ipsos poll in South Africa indicated that only 53% of adults would be willing to be vaccinated with COVID-19. And it's unlikely that government would be able to make vaccination mandatory. So for all intents and purposes, 67%, forget the whole big issue, the elephant in the room, that we don't have enough vaccine for 40 million people. But getting 67% of the population simply is not practical, and even the logistics of it. To give you an idea, in the first months of vaccination, we would need to vaccinate 150,000 people per day, each day, 7 days a week. And then from the second month onwards, that will increase to 300,000 people per day, each day, 7 days a week, right through to the end of December, if we start on the 1st of April. So you can do the maths behind it, and obviously it's something that's not going to be achieved. I think we would have done a remarkable job if we even get to 1/3 of the population this year.
All right, Prof, let's say in this beautiful, magical world with unicorns, we could start this process. What sort of infrastructure and support and personnel are we going to require to achieve this? That's if we do not use the tender process. I pray. Prof? Prof, can you hear me? So it seems as if we've lost the Prof.
Oh,
Yes. Go ahead, Prof. Madhi.
is he talking?
Sorry, I
Prof?
lost you. I lost the question by unicorns.
So, Prof, I'm saying, Prof, if we could do this, let's say we could do this in this magical world, what type of support and infrastructure and personnel are we going to actually require to actually achieve this? And that's if we don't use the tender process, which I pray.
So the only way we can come anywhere close to even getting to 1/3 of the population would be a robust public-private partnership. A government on its own will simply fail in terms of even reaching 1/3 of the population. So that public-private partnership is essential. And when I'm talking of the private partnership, I'm including healthcare workers, but over and above healthcare workers are people that have got experience in terms of logistics of being able to deploy products throughout the country, to the remotest areas of the country. So I'm talking of the Coca-Colas, I'm talking of the Checkers, the ShopRites. We have actually got networks across the country, and that sort of public-private partnership is critical if we are even wanting to vaccinate 1/3 of the population. But that private partnership needs to come with the social solidarity mission, in that the private sector should not consider making even 1 cent, including facilities, the clinics, the pharmacists, the general practitioners. They need to do this as a social good, because once there's any element that's expected of people to pay, even if it's just to get injected with a vaccine, that creates inequity. And that's something that defeats the purpose of what we're trying to achieve, which is vaccinate as many people over the shortest period of time. So it's about partnerships, it's about social solidarity, and it's about planning. And that type of planning that's required to achieve even 1/3 coverage by the end of this year, that's not within the realm. That's not the strength of government. You've just shown us that video clip on the SASA grants. I mean, that's a mess. And we do not want that to be repeated on a day-to-day basis when we're wanting to vaccinate 150,000 and eventually 300,000 people per day.
So then to that point, Prof, we did take part in some vaccine trials ourselves. Are we as a country leveraging our participation and experience to gain more vaccines? And which one would be more suitable for our specific conditions?
Right. So unfortunately, the principal investigators of these trials are not in a position to negotiate on behalf of government to leverage access to the vaccine. That is a prerogative of government. And it is ingenious for some individuals to suggest that it's the responsibility of the principal investigators. Government are the ones that are responsible, and they should have done that, and they should have entered into those bilateral agreements or discussions 6 months ago, and not 6 weeks ago, or even 6 days ago for some purposes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Prof, for joining us. This is obviously a conversation that I feel we are going to have a few times over in 2021, but it was great to have you on the show. Thank you for sharing your insights with us. And that's all we have for you tonight. Tomorrow we have a rising star, musician Rolene, and seasoned podcaster Ngcayisa, 2 rising stars actually, in the house.
Looking forward to it.
That's it for today. Good night, South Africa.